Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blues Talk. Again, Jim, Dave and myself going to look back at our victory in the Amlin against Biarritz and look forward to our game at the weekend against Ospreys, and also talk about Joe Schmidt, Heineken Cup and B&I Cup and lots of other things. It'll be a very busy show today. So boys, anyway, Heineken champs against Amlin champs from last season. Good win.
It's the European Super Cup.
Yeah. That was much easier in the end than we really figured. I suppose reality kind of caught up with Biarritz. They're not 11th in the French league for nothing, you know, and a lot of their kind of stalwart players that we expected a lot out of didn't really do a whole lot.
They kind of put it up to us for the first half an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, there was only a point in it until Sexton's try, you know.
Yeah, but again, that was more to do with us more than anything else. I felt like we started off, we could have probably blew at a second try. Johnny maybe could have passed that instead of going for it himself, you know what I mean, and then he was held up. Then we sort of got a little scratchy, as we're inclined to do, you know. Fairness, as you say, they played the game they wanted to play in terms of, you know, just kind of grinding it out. The problem was it just wasn't a day for grinding rugby. If it had been lashing rain, windy, maybe they would have had more success, but you know, Leinster were just in the mood to run the ball. It was a perfect day for it, and a hard ground, sunny day, and they just tore them apart. And once they got to 2 tries before half time, the game was over.
As we said many times here before, once Leinster took the pace up, Biarritz just, you know, they couldn't deal with it. I mean, we went through them like a knife through butter on occasion. I mean, when your best, when the player who's widely regarded as your most potent attacking threat is actually your best defender, you know, then things really aren't going towards your game plan. I mean, there was no area that we weren't almost completely dominant. We had a few mistakes in line-out, which, when you consider where our first try came from, was actually a bit disappointing. But apart from that, in every sector of the field, we were completely dominant. Yeah,
there was a lot of niggle as well, wasn't there? You know, a lot of off the ball, little punches and slide digs.
I think, you know, Biarritz are a bit old school, and in the past we've seen that happen with French teams. You know, I've seen it happen with international teams as well. When they lose and they know they've lost, they just basically start lashing out and throwing digs, doing off the ball. There was one particularly nasty stamp on Jamie Hislop. I think we saw the pictures of quite a few stitches. 11 stitches, very, very nasty gash. And I believe there is a sighting for Benoit August because of that. There was a few other things which, you know, Eric Lund and
he was throwing a few digs in at McLaughlin on the ground. I know he had him one with the elbow, but there was another one where he was punching him while on the ground.
There seemed to be, I think he took the whole Eric the Viking thing a little bit too seriously, like, you know what I mean? But yeah, you know, that's the way it is. Well, I mean, that's a beaten team that's lost their discipline, and they're just settling a few scores.
I mean, you can even see it with Harry Nordic. I'd say that's what you're about to say.
Yeah.
When he kicked the flag into the crowd, and he was just so frustrated. You could see it. But you know, that's the thing with Biarritz. You know, they can, if they don't get everything the wrong way, they can be a very, very easy team to beat.
But they were very one-dimensional. If you look, they just took it around the side of the ruck constantly. They didn't try to play any expansive rugby. And as you said, Jim, like, the day was just a beautiful day for running rugby, you know. And like, when you consider the way that we approached that match, from the opening move, we tried to flash the ball, and it was nice seeing Madigan in the centre trying to do that, you know.
Yeah, he had made a few mistakes, you know. He knocked a few balls on early, you know.
But he recovered well after.
No, I think he did. I thought he improved as the game went on. And it has to be remembered, it's the first time he's ever started there. Like, he's slotted in there during games, but it's different. You know what I mean? He's slotted in a couple of times, but it's different starting up and, you know, preparing the whole week for it and all that. But you know, listen, it was a fun day out. You know what I mean? It was a fun day out, and the atmosphere. I think the atmosphere was very. It was very pleasant, you know, because even when they got back to 10-9, there wasn't the worry there that you'd normally have. This was the Heineken Cup semi-final, and they got back to 10-9. You'd all be stressed, you know what I mean?
I wouldn't necessarily agree with the atmosphere. I thought the atmosphere in the RDS was one of the best, certainly this season. I thought it was pleasant. I think trivialises. I know you don't need to trivialise, but it does trivialise.
Well, I do need to trivialise it.
Maybe you do need to trivialise
it is.
But I think using the word pleasant about it trivialise the atmosphere. The atmosphere, I thought, was absolutely cracking, and I thought it was, you know, you get a nice day, you get a team that's playing well, you've got the crowd constantly on your back. Those are the kind of things that the French don't like. They don't like it up them.
Yeah, but I did think there still wasn't the same type of intensity. There wasn't still the same fear of losing there, and I think that was reflected in the play. as well. I mean, I do think.
But I thought we were always much stronger than them, and
yeah, but I think there was a freedom in it. There was a lack of pressure there.
Well,
you know what I mean?
With
like,
5 minutes to go, and we got our second try. Sexton's try, I said to Dave, game over. And 2 minutes later, he got the other one. He just turned around to me and said, no, now it's game over. So you know what I mean? So for 40 minutes of the second half, you just knew the match was over.
Yeah.
Oh, completely.
So there was no pressure on either the fans or Leinster at that stage.
That's it. And you know, and the ball was thrown around, and that's some stage. You know, it was like it was like sevens at times.
And
you know what I mean?
Biarritz aren't a club like say Clermont or Toulouse who would, even if they were beaten, would aim for respectability. Biarritz are a club that when they're beaten, they just don't give a crap. They'll try and start a fight.
Oh, that, as we saw.
Yeah, but wasn't it interesting? I don't know whether you saw the match on Friday night, the other semi-final. The contrast between the two sets of players when the final whistle went. You know, the Perpignan guys were just absolutely dead. They were lying down. Some of them were nearly crying. The Stade Francais players looked like they'd actually won the Heineken Cup, not just the semi-final of the Amelin.
Well, because they had a chance to play in the
absolutely,
Heineken Cup
but I mean,
it was a major motivation there.
But it seemed to be. You know, it meant a lot to both sets of players to get into that final with a potential of playing in the Heineken Cup.
Oh, totally. I mean, there's a reward there for them. Like,
I think it's interesting to juxtapose their attitude to the attitude of Biarritz, who didn't look to have the same, you know, desire that either Perpignan or Stade Francais. I mean, that was a cracking game. I mean, it was real end. I mean, it wasn't a traditional, it wasn't what you call a classic entertainment game. But the rugby was good. The intensity was huge, and it kept going, score for score for score for score. It was a massively entertaining game to watch. The thing about Biarritz is Biarritz needed to win that match as much as Stade Francais did.
Oh, they did, but they just went up to it.
The difference in attitude, the difference. I mean, Stade Francais may not be a whole lot better than Biarritz, but they'll have a whole lot of a better attitude when they come to Dublin.
Presumably they will, like, but the whole thing I think with Biarritz is I don't think they went out to throw the game. I mean, as you said yourself, that they were 10-9 after 38 minutes. That's not a team throwing the game, but they were just so limited in what they could do. Yeah. They didn't really have the weapons, and any weapons they had, they didn't use. As you were saying, we only saw Ngenwe in defence, and some superb defence. But he never got a pass.
You were saying earlier about a bit of a dry track and a great track for running the ball on. If you've got Aled Brew and Ngenwe, why the hell wouldn't you give them the ball on a day like that?
I just don't think they're capable of it, really. I mean, Yashvili plays a slow game at the best of times. You know, Dave Material, great player in his day, but he's not anymore. You know what I mean? And it's just, I just think their team is long since past it. And again, they're not 11th. I mean, it's one thing to be outside the top six, like Stade Francais. They're 7th. They're 11th. You know what I mean? Like they're lucky they're not.
They're 11th in a 14-team division.
Exactly.
And they're I think 18 points off 6th. So they're miles away.
They're miles away. They're miles away. They don't deserve to be in Europe. Frankly, they've been lucky to get into Europe even the last couple of years. So good riddance, really.
The Burger Bands of Europe will be disappointed. Mr. Blanco won't be paying his annual visits,
and the Italian teams might actually get another team in one of their
the Italians won't know what to do with themselves. They're not going to Biarritz.
They don't know their way around.
But anyway, there was 5 fantastic tries, and I think the first one was just a fantastic move off the line out.
It really was. I mean, actually, it was in a way it was the smallest role in the try, but it was kind of deserved for Devin Toner for his performance. That he did play such a key role. It's just a really nice move off the playbook, isn't it? Yeah,
it's fantastic. And we've seen obviously that kind of pop move before, but we've rarely seen it with a winger. You know, and so again, this is the sort of thing Joe Schmidt kind of comes up with, and it worked an absolute treat. And
there was a great view from that ref cam on Wayne Barnes, and the speed that Nasiwa comes in at.
Oh, he was like a greyhound hare.
That's the first time we've actually seen the ref cam used, and we're seeing bits of it in the game, and it's actually normally things like that I sort of view as kind of tacky kind of thing, but it's actually terrific. It gives you a really interesting insight.
I'd prefer if it was head mounted rather than chest mounted, because when chest mounted is where the ref's body is, it's not what he's looking at.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But I suppose maybe then you're turning into a kind of Google Glasses type of thing if they're kind of going like that. So but fantastic start anyway.
It was nice.
Yeah.
I think another one from a line out.
Yeah.
Like our line out kind of malfunctioned a little bit, but we did win a good bit of ball from it though later on.
There was some early yips that were settled, but it was just nice pass and nice lines.
Yeah.
Good
Johnny
strong one.
Made sure he got that one down, didn't he?
He wasn't very sloppy defence, really, wasn't
it? Oh,
it?
it was. I mean,
Rob got through very easy there. He got
And
through
even
very
Sexton, I mean, the guy practically gave up when he tried to tackle him on the line.
easy. Yeah.
No, Sexton does have a nice step up. I mean, one of the great things about the way Leinster play, especially when they bring guys like Rob through, or we saw it with Johnny coming through and O'Driscoll in the move where Johnny got held up. They don't come flat. They come from depth and they come at pace. When these guys are trying to break through on the shoulder, you know.
Absolutely, and just a nice line there, and he got away from trial very easy there, and as you say, there wasn't any great effort on the line either. But and it was nice to see Johnny playing very sharp. Like after it was kind of ironic after all the debate about who would start, and in the end they both started, you know, and they both made a big contribution. Like, and even though Johnny went off early, you know, Madigan took over, then slipped over. And
there was a nice little cameo at one stage. Sexton got injured, and he popped the ball to Madigan.
We were right in front of that it was Nasiwa's try, and Johnny's had a bit of a cramp, so threw the ball to Madigan, got a bit of treatment, so Madigan threw the ball back to him because it looked like he was okay, but then he just threw it back to Madigan and said, "You take it."
Yeah.
It's kind of a symbolic the passing of the torch, as it were.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it kind of worked out well. Like, 'cause then Madigan came in, he kicked 3. You know what I mean? Johnny kicked.
Look at Isaac Boss here. Look, watch him. It's on.
Yeah.
Give me the ball.
Because I mean, actually, the clock. We're looking at the clock. The time is actually up.
Yeah.
Like so.
Look at
that was
He's such a wristy pass. It's lovely to watch.
And East had a smashing game as well, and so did this fella, of course, O'Driscoll. This was actually lovely stuff, and even there, Mike Ross, you know, it's.
But this is actually the second time in the move, because the penalties originally given for Biarritz, they lost the ball. Jamie went down and they refused to release. This is the second time he's picked up on a loose ball outside the ball within the space of the same move.
Was there a knock on really there sharp. Somewhere?
No, it just looks because his hands go down for the ball. It looks a bit.
Oh right, yeah. I know some people were moaning about saying it was a knock on.
No, the ref cam says back, or the ref link says back off White.
Yeah. But again, you know, Jamie just had a massive game. I think obviously Shawnee being a kind of a late withdrawal. Well, not a late withdrawal. He wasn't in the team. But you know, the emphasis was on Jamie to do the running, and I think his stats were like 15 carries from 100 meters.
Well, it means he can play a bit wider.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. And actually, he did very well to stay in there. In fairness, but like I say, he breaks in the ground. But once he got through, and it's great to see him. I mean, we know that Jamie's game isn't just all running, but at the same time, it's nice to see him running too. You know, so
it's nice to see him get a chance to remind everyone that's actually
that's
an element to his game.
It's such a strong part of his game, and with O'Brien in the team, he doesn't really fulfil that role for us, and as a result, people can criticise him, because he's not on the ball all the time.
Yeah. Well, what I think is, and maybe it's one of the reasons why he was made captain, that the good pro sacrifices himself for the team, and that's what he's done with Leinster over the years. I mean, we've had between Rocky Ellison and Sean O'Brien, we've had some fairly flash ball carriers over the last couple of years. So somebody's had to sit back and play the holding role, as they say.
Support role.
And that's what he's done. I mean, he has sacrificed. I mean, that when he first broke into the Leinster team, his ball carrying was the big strength of his game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Perceived to be the big strength of his game.
He was on 7, 8, 9 tries a season for a couple of years.
Oh, he was absolutely. Although I think that's brought him up to 5 for this season, though. So it's interesting, and he has been low the last couple of years in terms of try counts. So, but this is a fantastic try again. From Issa, but it's
the
just
tackle.
It sort of almost reminds me a little bit of the famous Darcy Hickey one out in Toulouse with the interchange of the pass, and
although they didn't butcher it as much as Hickey and Darcy did.
Well, they got it down. So
I remember Alan Gaffney complaining about that try for years afterwards about the execution. There's actually a thing on the Blue Magic website. About at his
he's acted really well there considering he was tackled.
But Gaffney was always thought that this kind of thing killed teams. 3 or 4 close passes within space,
that was lovely.
Absolutely kills teams. So that's kind of a hangover from Gaffney's time. And
let's just enjoy this one though.
But O'Driscoll's turnover tackle was fabulous.
Yeah.
Just the pure aggression that he had.
But it's like you were saying, that the passing, it's actually really simple. I mean, nobody's doing anything really clever. It's just very simple. Pass inside, commit the man, pass outside. I
think this is what you're talking about here. Yeah, it's great because he gets to his feet, gets in position, and turns him over. And as you know, Alan Bruce,
He's a
weakling,
big boy,
you know what I mean? He's a big to taking ball and all, and still, the hands are released.
Yeah.
It's textbook stuff, really.
But that's Brian O'Driscoll. I mean, he is.
But with a go wide here, Johnny made the initial thing,
Yeah.
popped it there, and again because he just took such a nice line, and even the way Johnny straightened it in there just to create a little space again.
But it's
lovely to
committing. It's
watch.
committing the man on every pass as
And
well.
but you see some out halves, they'll give the pass and they just stop.
Oh yeah.
And he continued running and making himself available for Issa.
Absolutely.
Well, when you see on Nasiwa's try, or not on Nasiwa's try, on the final try, the amount of guys in support, it is Nasiwa's try, isn't it? O'Driscoll's try. Sorry, the amount of guys in support.
Well, let's watch it now.
Yeah, the amount of guys in support for Cronin when he goes to pop up the ball.
Well, Cronin almost had too much choice.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of funny because, and again, this is Jamie again, just had a rampaging game. And when we see the ball, of course, Ireland's most underrated inside centre. Here he goes again. He's just lightning, you know what I mean? And he's almost like, okay, who am I going to pass to here? And I almost thought he could have screwed it up because
It's a 4-on-1 there.
yeah, so that's it. I'd almost thought because he actually did stop and pop it out, you know what I mean?
It's very unselfish from Issa there, actually. He could quite easily have gone for that.
Well, I think in fairness, he probably knew, get Drickle will try in, you know what I mean? Keep him happy,
He didn't want another smack in the chops like he got last week.
Issa had another one of his brilliant games. He was absolutely as good as ever on.
He was fantastic
on Saturday.
And actually, as well, I will say one thing: you can even see even on the try he did score. He doesn't have the pace he once has. I think you can kind of see it. He doesn't have the pace. Maybe
You don't have lightning pace.
Yeah,
no.
you know what I mean. He doesn't have the pace, but he's intelligent with it. You know what I mean, and the sense that he's not just going to claim, I'm just going to run in and get tackled. He's going to keep the ball alive. He's not, and even when we've seen things in some of the Zebre tries as well, where he has a patience. He's adjusting his game, and even though it's the last few games of his career, he's still making a massive impact. And
Franz Beckenbauer once said, "I'm not the fastest from A to B. That's why I never start from A."
And that's it, yeah.
And that's what it is with Issa. It's about applying all that experience, all that game knowledge. And he's right back to top form. I mean, we were wondering whether the arm injury had caused him,
I think it definitely did. I think it slowed him down.
Slowed him down.
And even in the earlier part of the year, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't.
The worry was that injury was kind of a contributory factor to his retirement. But, it doesn't seem to be having an effect here.
No.
Interesting to hear that when Schmidt was given the Ireland job, that he credited part of his decision for going for the job to O'Driscoll. And he said O'Driscoll kind of encouraged him to go for it. So, as he said, maybe a bit of quid pro quo that, maybe he can have a bit of influence on O'Driscoll to stay for another season.
Well, we said it here last week. I think the final decision will come down to the man himself, and it will be taken post the lines. So it kind of does depend how busy a lines he has, whether he feels the thing. But I'd say it has to be looking good. Just in terms, you've seen him there again.
He's great
nick
as well as
he's a great nick, though, isn't he?
He's a great nick. He's enjoying his rugby. And even the fact that he missed an awful lot of last season, with various. Even this season he missed bits and pieces of it. Yeah. And I'd say he'd love to get nearly a full season under his belt.
But that's the thing that he's played obviously 13 or 14 years for us, but he has missed large chunks of the last 5 or 6 years between maybe since the Lions tour in 05, and since then he's never really had one entire season injury free.
I'd say
09.
09 was probably. Yeah.
I'd say of that entire span of his career, I'd say he's had 2 years off in terms of injury. And now that was bad for him at the time, and it might have contributed maybe to slowing him down or whatever. But at this end of his career, he doesn't have quite that wear and tear. Maybe I don't know. I'm not Brian O'Driscoll. I'm not going to speak for the guy. Priests speak for people like Brian O'Driscoll. I don't. But I think that if you're playing like that and you're looking as good as that, and you're obviously feeling that good, then you don't stop because you'll be long enough retired.
Plus, as well, I think you have to be tempted by we'll talk about Joe later, but by Joe going into the Ireland job, he might say, well, geez, I'd love to see it. I don't want to be sitting around going, if it goes as well as we hope it goes, in terms of playing that kind of style, I'm sure he'd love at least one season of it. You know what I mean? So it's looking good, but as you say, it's entirely that man's decision. And when we hear it, we'll hear it, and that's all.
Well, hopefully we'll have 3 more games of him anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as you mentioned there, Joe got the Irish job. I mean, probably the worst kept secret in Irish rugby for a long time. But anyway, he got the job. But interesting that Philip Brown said today he has a clean sheet. He can go and get his own crew that he needs to, which is great.
Absolutely.
Instead of being laboured with Foley or Kiss or whoever.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, not that they're bad coaches, but just that he can pick his own guys.
Well, I mean, and if Joe wants to pick him, as we were talking about, speculation about this, it was very much a point that Joe was in a very powerful position in terms of negotiations. I think that was pretty clear. And as much as Joe is a very nice guy and all this, he's still a hard professional coach as well. And if he's going to come into the job, he's taking it from the point of view as I want to do the best job I can do possible, and for me to do that, I'm going to have the rights to pick up my own team. And initially when I heard he wasn't doing the summer tour, I kind of said, well, that's a bit strange. But then when I actually thought about it, I said, no, it probably is the best, because A, as he said, he's going to have Leinster commitments, and 2, it makes him, there's no pressure to kind of say, well, you have to keep this fella on, you have to keep that
because
fella
he won't
on,
build up any relationship with them when they're away in the States, and just can just call it quits underneath it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's even debate whether he'll actually go on the tour. There was talk that he might go on the tour as an observer.
I wouldn't do that if I were him. I'd stay. Well, apart from anything else, Les Kiss is in charge of that tour. I mean, you
kind of undermine each other.
You don't have two bosses. Let Les run that tour.
You can still watch the videos.
Exactly.
And in fairness, like he's gonna know most of these guys anyway. You know what I mean? So and let's be honest with you, these tours tend to be kind of fairly, I wouldn't say meaningless, but at the end of the day, you're playing USA, Canada. The score. I mean, remember Ian Whitten scored 2 tries on one of his debut, never seen again. So
but I remember in 2000 I think we were beaten by Canada in one of the matches in 2000.
That was at the tail end of Canada being quite good,
and also at the tail end of the
90s. I mean,
we were fairly rubbish.
By then, professionalism in Europe had meant that we were beginning to move one way, and North American rugby was beginning to move another. It's just unfortunate. I mean, Canada were always a strong enough team to challenge Ireland, Wales, and Scotland. Traditionally, have been. Up until professionalism came in. No, as you say, the clean slate is important. I'd say he'll probably mix a bit of continuity and some changes. The word on the street is that Les Kiss will be retained as defence coach, and new forwards coach will be brought in. There's a lot of talk about Richie Murphy actually coming in as a skills coach. Whether that will happen or not, I don't know. On top of this, with Kidney being gone, the decks are now cleared for the national scrum director to come in, who could maybe appoint a full-time scrum coach to the national team, as opposed to having guys jumping around between, like Foley's had to jump around between Munster and Greg Feek has had to jump between Leinster, and it's not the ideal situation. So Joe has the opportunity now to create his own team for Team Ireland.
I do think no, in fairness to Joe, he has said he's briefly worked with Les Kiss in the past. So he wouldn't. I think if he makes that call, he'll make it himself. I don't know though. I don't know. Les Kiss has been with them a long time, and he's done a lot of different things, and you still wonder, does he have anything fresh to add? You know what I mean? And there is still a kind of a bit of a hangover as well, like from the previous kind of thing, like But on the other hand, in fairness, when we won the Grand Slam, it was a big part of Les Kiss's defense. So you know what I mean, and. They seem to have a similar kind of thinking on it as well.
It's funny actually. We've had since Ireland won the Grand Slam, Leinster have had a new coach, and now Ireland have a new coach. But at the end of Leinster's Heineken Cup winning season and Ireland's Grand Slam winning season, the two men who were kind of primed to be next in line were Les Kiss and Kurt McQuilkin, and both were defensive coaches, and both defensive systems were key to both teams winning. And it's funny, like. Kurt obviously decided to go back to New Zealand, and Les hasn't got the next job, as it were. I thought he'd get a next job, if not with Ireland, then maybe with Connacht or somewhere. But it just didn't work out for him, which is strange.
Yeah, well, it was just he got involved in maybe moving to attack coach. Maybe then it didn't really ultimately suit him in the end. Although in fairness, it wasn't that we weren't scoring tries; it was more just.
The turgid way we were trying to.
Yeah, I think the whole thing, it's kind of hard to know. But in any case, listen, I'm just delighted that Joe's confirmed. I think, in fairness to the RFU, once they kind of got the way the way the wind was blowing, they knew this was pushing an open door that most of the Irish public would support it. I think apart from one or two bitter provincial fans. They're absolutely, most people are delighted. I heard one people say, well, he doesn't have international experience, but let's be honest with you, most coaches with international experience have international experience of losing. You know what I mean? There's very few Jake Whites. There's very few, You know what I mean?
There's very few coaches with international experience who are available, and the reason that they are available, with the exception of the likes of Jake White, is because they've been fired.
Yeah, or they've had other jobs and all that. Like, so, listen, he didn't have head coach experience when he came to Leinster. Didn't exactly work out too badly.
Yeah,
you know.
But like, he does have this very strong position now with the Irish, and especially when he was negotiating. Like, one of the things that he's not going to have to do is have this meeting on the eve of internationals with the IRFU. But it was interesting because I heard an interview with Eddie O'Sullivan yesterday, and he said he never had to go through that rigmarole either. So for some reason they brought it in. Maybe it was post the World Cup fiasco in 2007 that they brought it in. I don't know.
It's quite interesting that I heard the same interview.
It was there for O'Sullivan's time, but O'Sullivan was...
No, it wasn't.
No. What I mean, the system was there. O'Sullivan
he said he met them in November.
Yeah, he just didn't bother with it. O'Sullivan also didn't bother with a team manager. As soon as was it Niall O'Donovan? Brian O'Brien. As soon as his role came to an end, O'Sullivan folded the role into his own role. O'Sullivan tried to minimise contact with the union as much as possible. He had a bit of a Brian Clough attitude, sign the cheques and go away. With Declan Kidney, sorry, just to finish, with Declan Kidney, he had a manager imposed upon him from outside. But then Declan's a different character than Eddie. He's a different character than Joe. Maybe he thought, well, you know, these are just trivial things. I don't mind if it takes me 10 minutes out of my time. Now, the fact is, I don't think a coach should ever have to do it. Well, maybe Declan didn't mind, and he just decided, well, I'll do it and shut them up.
I don't know. Maybe Declan didn't come in, and I mean, you would think Declan came in as a strong position.
I don't think he was really first choice even.
He wasn't first choice. You see, that's the thing.
Well, at the same time, though, he was able to bring in his own team, the Garrett Small and his Kiss and all that, and maybe he was just doing a bit of trading up. Maybe there was a bit of a feeling because, as you said, Eddie O'Sullivan didn't do it. He said he met with them at the start of the campaign, met with them at the end, which is fair enough. I mean, that's fine. I'm sure no one would have an objection to that, really. You know, in terms of giving an overall view. But maybe some of the union felt that Eddie O'Sullivan had sort of gone too powerful, that there was too much of a thing,
rein him back
and
in
they were maybe to think, and maybe that was part of it. But I'm glad it's gone. I like I say, you know, that's not wise. I'm sure Joe had absolutely no problem going in and saying, you know, presenting any kind of thing, you know, at the start and the end of every kind of particular section. And I mean, you know,
you do it in any job.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you have to have a performance review at some
stage.
No,
you can't. I mean, you can't just say, "Listen, I'm not going to be answering to anybody."
The other side of it is he may actually be fortunate because Plan Ireland is apparently now about to be rolled out again. So he might there'll be a benefit off that. Hopefully, there will if it's a good plan.
Well, hopefully, again, he'll be talking to professional people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like, and the sort of people, you know, that you know he's used to talking to in terms of, and you know, the constant communication, like, because I think we have had in the past.
He's kind of turned poacher turned gamekeeper now because he's worked as a provincial coach for the past 3 seasons. He knows the pitfalls. He knows, you know, I'm sure that there's been some tension between him and it doesn't matter whether it was Kidney or whoever, but between the provincial coaches and the national team coach. And maybe he can bring in some better way that they do it. Take the players away for so long.
I think that it's every national coach, no matter where they came from, every provincial coach is doomed to be annoyed by the national coach, and every national coach is doomed to annoy the provincial coach. I mean, Declan Kidney was unhappy with a lot of stuff that happened when Eddie O'Sullivan was the head coach. But when Kidney was in that position, he did pretty much the same stuff. And there are elements of it as head coach that you just have to be a bit of a bastard to the provinces. Well, I mean, that's just the way it is.
Well, apparently he no sort of relationship with Tony McGann, which is ironic because he brought in Tony McGann as defensive coach. I think I would hope that Joe could hopefully manage that situation better. We know the system. The system isn't going to change. Guys are, you know, and we can't have guys. I mean, guys are going to be coming back off a Lions tour. You know what I mean? And well, as we'll see, you know, 6 Leinster players for a start, and. Well, 5 actually are going to be coming back, but anyway,
6 will go out, 5 will come back.
So I mean, you know, a lot of these guys are going to have to be managed and all that. But I think if you have a bit of common sense about it, and hopefully Joe will at least take that. You're kind of saying, you know, take it as in by case basis. Don't just go blanket. These guys have to miss so many games. You know what I mean? Take it and say, well, hang on, that guy missed half the last season because of injury.
I would say in favour of Kidney, he did have a lot softer approach in terms of that. Okay, players had to get their rest times. But different players got different lengths of rest. I mean, you could see it throughout the season. Some guys who like to play all the time, like say for example, Ron O'Gara is a great example. Ron O'Gara doesn't react well apparently to being to sitting and watching rugby and bench. So he was brought back quite quickly, and so was Johnny Sexton, whereas other guys were left longer periods. So.
Yeah, and that's one thing. I think it's a fair comment. That I don't think Kidney was as didactic as Eddie O'Sullivan. Eddie O'Sullivan had this blanket thing about you missed the first 6 weeks.
He wouldn't even let. If you remember, he used to bring the guys away to Portugal for warm weather training over Christmas, and miss the interprovincial. So the marquee match of the season would have been Leinster-Munster, say. And there'd be all the A-team players playing in it.
I thought at times it was too didactic, and I think, as in fairness to Kidney, one thing I'd have to say, I think he did bring in a more case-by-case basis. There'd still be the odd bit of howling at the start of the year from people going, why isn't Johnny Sexton going to just go playing every game? But they can't play every game, you know what I mean? We know what it is. I mean, we saw the amount of injuries he had this year alone, and we're still in that kind of player management system. So, you have to kind of give guys rest. But hopefully, anyway, it's going to work out well. I'm certainly very excited. I'm actually excited about the Autumn International Series.
But hopefully it will reinvigor some interest in the national.
I definitely think
because there was definitely that fall off.
Like
that's where we all were brought up watching was the internationals, and now because the provincial teams have become so strong, it's not a case of either or. It should be both.
I think there's a case that because the provincial teams have become so strong and have become so successful and are playing. I mean, when Munster were strong, Leinster strong, Ulster have been. Not quite reached the pinnacle, but have been strong. People are used to watching good rugby, winning rugby on a regular basis. In the last, say, 2, 3, 4 years of the Kidney regime, last year or two of the O'Sullivan regime, the standards of the rugby, of the fair been placed in front of people had dropped off. Certainly the number of wins had dropped off. So there was certainly this season with Ireland, there was an air of gloom over the entire season. It was like you could see it from the start of the season that this was going to be a steady downward slope. And, maybe that was Kidney, maybe that was just all things come to an end.
I think you're a losing team as well. If you're losing constantly, you can only put so much, positive spins on it. You know what I mean? If you're losing, you're losing. And no, I'll be honest with you, as we're all excited, Joe is going to be under pressure. I mean, people are going to want to see what he did at Leinster replicate, and of course we all know it's not as simple as that. It's not as quite as simple as that. You know what I mean? And actually, it is a tough autumn series between Australia, New Zealand, and Samoa, who were no easy games. I mean, let's not forget they beat Wales last year. So it's a tough thing, but I'm still very excited about it, and I think he is the best place to get us playing to a style that we can compete and hopefully succeed.
Yeah. I think Jason's always been an attendee, but I think even myself and Jim may dip into our wallets for Irish tickets now. See how it goes.
It would definitely make you more excited about the prospect.
Hopefully we will. Anyway, big news today was the line selection you alluded to earlier. 9 Irish on it, 6 from Leinster. No surprise that there was 15 from Wales.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, with the amount of international success that Wales have had in Six Nations, while their form was shocking, really. I mean, they were coming into the Six Nations. I think they lost 9 matches, was it, against when we played them at the start?
They'd certainly lost 6 anyway. They'd lost all the tests.
Yeah.
They'd lost the 3 tests. They'd lost the 3 or 4 in.
They lost 4. They lost the 4 autumn internationals.
So that was 8 in a row that they actually lost, which is kind of remarkable when you think about it. Okay, they might have had a Barbarians win, but obviously that's a non-cap game. I mean, their season, for a lot of the season, they were poor. And they were poor against us. Okay, they had a second half revival, but they were poor. But they gradually scrapped their way through. They got a dogged win out in France. 2 scrappy games, really, against thing. But by the end of it, they were playing fantastic.
And the previous season, they had won the championship as well.
They
so,
did.
I mean, that's a 2-year championship team, which doesn't actually happen all that often in Six Nations these days.
Not.
So, there will be accusations of, has the coach been biased? I actually don't think he has.
No. Well, you see, my view on that is that he kind of has, because we had a debate a few weeks ago about what way the makeup of it would be and what games would be important to Gatland, and clearly he's gone with the Six Nations games being more important. Like, I just did a little bit of research. Like, for instance, he took 5 players from the Ospreys, right? Ospreys haven't got out of the pool in the Heineken Cup since the quarter-final loss to Biarritz in 2010. They finished 3rd in their pool this season, winning 2 out of 6 games. Similarly, he's taken 4 players from Cardiff, and they were hockeyed by us in the quarter-final last year. They again finished 3rd in their pool and only won 1 out of 6 matches in the Heineken Cup. So he didn't base really. And then if you take a bolter, for instance, like say 4 years ago, they took Keith Earls on a team. He got one Irish cap against Canada the previous autumn. He had scored 2 tries in probably Munster's finest game of running rugby against the Ospreys, and he got onto the lines based on his Munster form. And there's very few players have been picked for their club form. It's their international form.
At the same time, McGeechan was criticised for bringing Earls because he'd done nothing at international level.
Well, there you go. But he still did have brought people.
I think that Gatland knew the bones of what his squad was. It was, if there was a 50-50 call, what he did was he went, okay, how's that? I want to bring Jamie Heaslip. Right, Jamie Heaslip is one of the 40 or 50 guys that's in my plans. I'm looking at him and I'm going, how's he going at international level? Well, it's not actually gone that well for him. How's it going at club level? He's doing okay. He's going well at club level. He's up against, we'll say, a Chris Robshaw. How's it going at international level? It's not going that well for him. How's it going at club level? Oh, that Harlequins game really exposed him. Robshaw out. He's the bit. So I'd say that he has used it as a factor, but he's used it as a factor to confirm that which he kind of already, if not knew, believed to be true.
Yeah, and I sort of I do actually sort of agree. I think he knew who he wanted to bring, and as you say, if the club form was rubbish, then fine, I'll bring the international form into it. And for all you can say about the Ospreys guys stringing, the guys that are bringing, I wouldn't have a problem with bringing any of them because I do believe their form at the international level.
One prominent Osprey who I was 100% certain was nailed on not only to go but to be a potential test starter was left behind in Dan Biggar.
Oh, I didn't think he was going to go.
I thought he was going to go. I was sure he was going to go.
I didn't think. Maybe as a third, if he brought a third out half. But that's one chap.
Well, I thought someone like Ashton might have got in.
No. And an absolutely correct decision because his form was absolutely shocking. I was terrible all year.
I listed out all the wingers that were available to him. They had obviously he's got the 4 lads he's brought: Maitland, Bow, and the 2 Welsh lads. But he also has Visser, Zebo, Gilroy, Ashton, Foden. So if you're looking at it, I mean, he has 10 guys available to him. He's picked 4. I certainly wouldn't have had Ashton in the top 4.
No.
Okay, well then you got say from an Irish perspective, Zebo or even Gilroy this year has been.
I think Zebo is a bit. I think if it was picked around autumn, I think Gilroy probably would have been on. His form, well, not terrible, just kind of he became less spectacular, Zebo, I probably would have gone with Zebo had a Maitland myself. I just think he could give you something. And let's not forget, as it provides with all this kind of stuff, there will be other guys coming on the tour. There will be injuries, there will be suspensions. Things happen on tour, and we've seen it, so there will be other guys, and I wouldn't still be surprised to see the likes of
what could have swung it in Maitland's favour is the fact that he has played Super Rugby. And would be experienced in those hard pitches at that time of year.
And was a very, very good Super Rugby
a very
player,
good Super
to be
Rugby
fair.
for Sagers and Canterbury.
There's always going to be ones. Overall, I was happy enough.
Even the boat. Sorry, no, you carry on.
Yeah, no. Overall, I was happy enough. Let's not forget when we got to the end of the Six Nations, we had 1 win, 1 win out of 5. Now at that stage, we were talking about, geez, maybe we'll get 5 or 6 on the tour. You know what I mean?
Well, take for instance, Ulster. Well, take Munster for instance. They got to the Heineken Cup semi-final. They got 2 guys on the tour.
But who else really should have gone?
Maybe Donncha Ryan.
Donncha Ryan's problem, I think, has been, again, started off the Six Nations brilliantly and was brilliant. Hurt his shoulder, form started to slip. Even for Munster, the form has started to slip. I think he needs a summer off. I'm actually, in a way, while I'm sorry for him individually, he's been playing through the pain. I think he possibly even needs an operation.
If the Lions selection had been named before the Six Nations, I'd say Ryan would have been in it. But just to say,
I think Rory Best definitely would have been. Even after the first game, Rory Best would have been into it.
But after that,
But I mean, you just and actually, it's not just for Ireland.
And there's another one.
His Ulster stats as well.
His Ulster stats. I mean, that game against Saracens.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's just happened too many times, and I'm sure he would have loved to take him. And in fairness, now, I don't know how Dylan Hartley's on it. That was the one that I went, what? Of all the selections, Dylan Hartley going, what? Him? I mean, okay, even if you're not going to take Rory Best, you could look at Richard Strauss, you could look at Ken Owens, who's a fine hooker as well. Hartley, I don't know if it's a New Zealand thing or whatever, but
I don't think Hartley's keeping out Rory Best. I think Hartley's keeping out the guy who would have been in instead of Rory Best. In fairness, I think
Rory kind of played himself.
He did, and as much as
I was looking at a like one of the bolters that we talked about, Mako Vunipola, for example, which seemed to be a kind of a strange choice. But if you actually looked at what I think Gatland will do with him, which is to bring him out. He won't start. I don't think he'll start any of the tests. He might make a couple of test benches. But then what he'll do with 20 minutes to go, because Australia aren't the world's, most redoubtable scrummagers, is they'll bring him on and use him just to charge up the middle and carry the ball. I mean, he's there for his ball carrying, not his scrummaging, I'd say.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
I think his scrummaging is. I wouldn't have any great confidence in his scrummaging, but as you say yourself, he's an impact player.
One other surprising selection was only bringing 2 out halves.
Yeah.
And I don't know, basically you're going to need a reserve for every game. So is Johnny going to back up Farrell and then vice versa for the midweek game?
Apparently,
Stuart Hogg has been.
He's the utility back
there as now. In fairness, I always was confident Hogg would go anyway because he played very well, especially the early stages of the championship. He can cover centre, wing, fullback. Apparently now he covers 10 too. Now it is a little bit weird.
Maybe they're going back to the Jenkins day where they got when say the 97 lines where they had
Townsend at
10 and then they moved Jenkins into
just
12.
to do the kick.
Yeah.
15. And again, he couldn't play fullback to save his life. The South Africans never exposed him. Actually, no, sorry, they exposed him in the last game when they started running on him. But the series was won at that stage.
Hogg. When I saw they named 3 fullbacks and Hogg was one of them, I thought, all right, they're going with 2. They're going to go with 2 out halves. I thought that was going to be the split.
Well, I was kind of surprised that Murray got in ahead of Laidlaw. You see, I thought what they would have done is have Laidlaw to cover both scrum half and out half. You know what I mean? Because a lot of this, when you really think about it, it does come down to midweek games. You know what I mean? A lot of the time it's just a guy has a strain and you don't want to put him on a bench. Like if Johnny has a strain, he's not going on the bench. So I suppose the midweek games would be happy enough to maybe just start Farrell, have Hogg on the bench to cover.
And if somebody
has for the best.
If somebody has a sprain, as you say, or a strain or whatever going into a game, and they know about it far enough away, it's not like the old days where it took 3 months on a steamer to get down to Australia to get somebody on a plane and get him out there.
No, it's true, and I think to be fair to Gatland, the logic now initially again, that was one of the big things about it as well. To be fair to Gatland, his attitude was, listen, this is the shortest tour we have in terms of, there's not that many games to get going. So you want your 10s well bedded in. Both your 10s to have a good bit of game plan. Get all the game exactly, down. So it's almost like he's kind of saying, well, listen, I want these guys there. And, they are going to be working hard. And if you do bring 3, then you're trying to get him a game. And then, you know what I mean? So maybe there is some logic
I do think as well, I think certainly Johnny, and I'd say probably Owen Farrell, because he does, whatever one might say about Owen Farrell, he's not a lazy player. I'd say their work ethic is one that would enjoy the regular week in, week out, either play, bench, play, but they'd enjoy that as well. And then, as Gatland said, by the time the 3rd match is over, every player in the squad will have played, which is again very important for squad cohesiveness.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, initially, he named 37 in the end, and which is probably larger than he initially. I thought he was actually going to only name 35, and I think that is a big thing. And again, this all goes back to 2005 tour, but there was so many. There was 48, 49 players brought. Guys were travelling separately, all this type of thing. It was an absolute fiasco, and it was reflected in the results and the general unhappiness on the tour.
Tours are fairly unhappy places anyway, because there's a split between.
Well, there's always going to be 20 guys who are pissed off.
Exactly, and when you're drawing the dividing line so early in it and saying, well, I heard Jamie Heaslip on an interview today, and he said that when they were down in South Africa, that they travelled, the squad moved together to every game.
It was a totally different thing because
in New Zealand they were going the A team would go to wherever, and
they weren't
the B
training
team
together.
They had separate coaching staffs.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I in fairness, I can understand the logistical kind of reasons behind it in terms, but it completely destroyed the whole kind of squad ethos. And as you say yourself, and as it happened, the A's, because they were coached by McGeechan, actually did quite well. But
and
it was sorry,
and Eddie.
Are you talking about in
2005?
2005, sorry.
Yeah. But no, so I do think there's always, it's funny, and I always say the same, when it's World Cups and all, like we always talk about the kind of smaller kind of possibly kind of insignificant in the grand scheme of things kind of thing. Oh, why didn't he get in? Why didn't he get in? I still think it's a pretty strong squad. You'll always argue about things. I think nine players. That's not bad.
Especially considering the season that Ireland had. This year.
Yeah.
And maybe even last year.
The other thing to remember is that since 1997, 21 players have been called up to the lines as additional players. So that's what an average of 5.
But you would think back at the last tour, obviously Quinlan got done for his hand on Leo Cullen's eyes.
Tomas O'Leary
got injured, and the hooker Jerry Flannery, and I'm sure there's a few others as well. And even like I can remember, I think
Ferris had to pull out during
Ferris, and they brought Ryan over from Wales, and
Darcy went over.
But Ryan went over and he was concussed, and he played, and they sent him off again.
He didn't even play. He didn't even play. He basically got back on the plane, you know, which was a bit of a shambles. No, and then that's actually another fella. You know, hasn't even been mentioned that much. Ryan Jones, you know, he played a big important part in that campaign. He kind of missed the start and missed the end, but you know, he's another guy who could have gone in there. Like so there's a lot of hard luck stories. I mean, I felt that if they took 3 scrum halves, 3 tight heads, I thought they'd take Mike Ross. So I was a little surprised that Matt Stevens got in ahead of him, like, you know.
Who's retired from international
rugby. Has retired from international rugby. But at the same time, listen, if he thinks he can cover both sides, maybe he thinks he's a bit more dynamic, you know, it's his call. I wouldn't have a huge problem with it.
I mean, you could have a little niggle at 1 or 2 positional or selections. But in terms of the squad, I mean, you couldn't really argue. I mean, you couldn't say that that's willfully bad selection in any position.
And I'm actually very impressed. Like, I mean, when the English bandwagon was going on during the Six Nations,
but even that guy that was,
they were talking about putting in 22 Englishmen.
But even the winger that was playing for
Mike Brown
against us for Wasps a few weeks ago, you know, because he scored 1.
Christian Wade,
the guys on, he's going to be alive.
They were doing the same with James Hook on the Friday night in Perpignan against
and you could probably say Madigan as well. Madigan has sort of come from nowhere. Now, if there's one little disappointment, is there is no bolter. I kind of traditionally it's kind of do like to see,
like even Will Greenwood was a bolter back in the day.
Absolutely, you know, and was one of the
Gus was as well back in 89.
And sometimes, you know, you could just make a bit of space for one of those guys who could come in and just give a little bit of energy, give a little bit of
Vunipola, not the bolter.
Not really, because he was on the English bench and he did start during the Six Nations.
1 or 2 caps, but
who else would have gone ahead of him?
Well, no, but what I'm saying is he not like the young kind of charger that's new to the scene. You
can't have a prop as a bolter.
It's not even right. It's not even right. But
anyway, boys.
No, but it's just in terms of perception, I think that's probably actually true that we don't tend to see forward selections, certainly front row forwards, selections as bolters. I think as close as there is to a bolter in this squad, he's it.
Possibly, yeah.
Well, anyway, so we've got our last round of Pro 12 matches this weekend coming up. Obviously, the top 4 positions are pretty much set, but what way they're all going to finish still in the mix.
Well, I mean, they're, you know, short of a disaster for Connectley at home, Treviso, which isn't going to really happen, or, you know, the Ospreys, it's pretty much, as you say, they're set. It's just a case of who's going to finish where. You'd have to be pretty confident Ulster will finish first.
Well, they play Cardiff. And Cardiff's form this year has been appalling. They've won 8 out of 21 games in the Pro 12.
They're rubbish, you know what I mean? It's not even worth. Ulster will win that game, they'll win the encounter. And they'll deservedly finish first. They've been leading most of the way.
The only question is, do Cardiff have enough in them to stop Ulster getting a bonus point win?
Yeah,
I'm not even sure.
Don't even think that will matter.
Just in terms of like the actual result. I mean, there's no question Ulster will win. I don't even think they have it in them to stop.
I doubt either. I'll put it this way: none of their lines are going to start that game. You know what I mean? They're not going to risk them getting in just for what's a nothing game for them.
They're not going to bother their
arse. And anyway, sure, they barely bother their arse anyway.
Well, that's they're not going to bother their arse for a club they never bothered their arse for.
Yeah, so exactly. So no, that isn't going to happen.
And I guess the other big match, you know, from our point of view, is Connacht against Glasgow, which would be Elwood's last match as head coach. And I read today he's 24 years involved with Connacht Rugby. Like, that's, you know, half his life.
Incredible. And especially when, and after a lot of that, he was actually based in Dublin, played for Lansdowne. He was actually Lansdowne stalwart at the same time, but drove up and down to always play for Connacht. Obviously, there wasn't been as many games back in the amateur days. But it's an incredible thing. You'd hope that, you know, they could, you know, maybe do us a favour. But at the same time, let's hope they don't need to do us a favour. You know, let's hope that we can get the win over the Ospreys. Because for all, you know, like, it's still going to be a tough game. The Ospreys, you know, we've only beaten them once in the last 7 times.
They really are a bogey team.
Yeah, they are a horrible bunch of bastards. It's just they don't seem to. Where we sort
they don't
of
know their place, Jim.
They don't know when they're beaten.
If you walk into the Ospreys head coach's office, on a shelf there's a lever arch file, and it's how to beat Leinster. And he's the only coach who has this file that he can go to.
Passed on from generation
to generation. Every year it's brought out when they play us, and every year it works.
But the amount of times, especially in the home games, when we've actually taken good leads against them. Good leads, good 10, 13 points. Okay, not running away with it, but good leads. And this is normally the bit where Leinster put on the pressure, teams start to crack a bit, few tackles there ahead, heads to go down. But they just don't. And I've noticed it. Even when they go down, they never, you can see it in their body language. Yeah. They're never thinking, oh, we're screwed here. They think, no, it'll come. And it's that confidence from having consistently beaten us consistently. Even though, I mean, both the home games last year came down to the last kick. You know what I mean? So, and Biggar, you know, in fairness to him, his kicking, you know, Pro 12 level is always, is probably one of the most consistent around. So it's going to be interesting, but no, we have to front up, and it's been such a kind of a topsy-turvy week in terms of the Lions today had Joe, the coach, speculation about the new Leinster coach, which probably resolves sooner rather than later. All this kind of going on, and it's a Friday night game, but you know the lads need to be on it. They need to be, because this is.
I mean, this has to be, you know, near enough to a full strength selection. I mean, obviously injuries aside, and there might be one or two, maybe rest, but it has to be as near to a full strength selection because Ospreys have ruined our seasons. I mean, there's no two ways to put it.
Well, the last thing we want to do is going to wait to Glasgow.
Absolutely.
No, they've ruined our season a number of times, and we have to beat them. Because we want, in order for our season not to be ruined, one of the key elements of that is getting our home semi-final, you know? So, yeah, no, we have to win. So I'd suggest picking as strong a team as is available.
I think we're in the cup final mode.
Yeah.
And I think this is another cup final.
Yeah.
This is another knockout game. Yeah. They're all knockout games from now on. And we want to play all our games at the RDS. You know what I mean? That's great. That's incentive there. The incentive is just to knock them out. To put after they robbed us of 2 titles. Not robbed, they deservedly won, to be fair. But, you know, they denied us 2 titles. We want to get that bit of revenge.
They robbed us by winning deservedly.
They robbed us by winning deservedly. How dare they? But, you know, so there's gonna be a huge amount there as well. And I just think, I heard some people saying, well, you know, send out the reserves and all resting. No, come on, like, this is serious end of the season now, you know what I mean? Like, you know, fair enough if the guys, 1 or 2 people carrying knocks, or, you know, I know it was a physical game and all that, you know, with certain, you know, off the ball stuff, but listen, you know, we seem to need a strong team.
Those are 2 issues. I mean, Jamie has 11 stitches in his leg.
But then Sean O'Brien could be back.
Yeah. Kevin McLaughlin got a broken nose. Johnny Sexton has a dead leg. Don't know how much that will slow him down. We don't know what the situation is with Dars. But apart from those, who may be rested.
Let's be honest, a couple of them are going to start anyway.
I would say. I'd be very surprised if Johnny didn't start, for example. I'd be very surprised if Kevin McLaughlin didn't start either. But you know, it's the strongest team available we picked. Joe doesn't mess around this time of the year.
No.
Joe never messes around this time of year. When he sees the final in the distance. You know,
you can rotate your squad around Christmas time, not around.
He doesn't rotate.
May.
In fairness to Joe, like he still always makes a couple of changes, but they're not. There'd be positions of strength where you can say
he uses his squad. He's not. I mean, for example, although he seems to have disappeared off the radar. Traditionally, this would be a game maybe because he wants to rest Keane Healy. He'd pick Heinke.
Yeah. I think Heinken's been struggling with a knee injury.
Although, in fairness to Jack McGrath, he's really stepped up to the plate.
Well, I mean, you know, Keane did go off. Now, apparently, it was precautionary, you know. But Jack McGrath has improved to the point where, like, if he was starting against Adam Jones, you'd actually fancy him, like, you know.
I'd certainly love to see that. Actually, that'd be a great gauge of where he is.
Because I mean, listen, that Adam Jones, I'd say, is the test tie head at the moment. Anyway, you know, for the Lions. So, you know, that'd be a hell of a test. You know, even for Jack, just to see, you know, where he's come on. And but as I say, it'll be where they're saying, you know, play Dave Carney or Fergus McFadden on the wing. You know what I mean? One of those little things. Joe always tends to freshen things up a little bit, like, you know. But you have to remember his thing as well is, you know, this is Joe's last few games as well. Like, as well as Issa going, as well as the other people going. You know, like, there's a huge emotional thing. Like, so guys are, and they're going to be so sick that after losing 2 Pro 12s, you know what I mean? You know, we're certainly last year they really should have won. You know what I mean?
Especially that we don't have the high. You know what I mean? We've got the Amlin, fair enough, but like it's still nowhere near what we want it to be.
Yeah.
And so this is our next best.
Oh, absolutely. Oh God, I mean, we want this, and I think
we really do.
Joe will be annoyed if he leaves without having to run in a Pro 12, considering. But it's not going to be easy. Glasgow, like, home or away. I mean, Glasgow will put it up to us. Ulster beating us twice. This is going to be a hell of a thing. But if we can get our form, like say we've 5 tries last week, you know, against Biarritz, but we have to start doing it in the big, you know, the real tough games against really tough defences, like, you know what I mean? So if we can do that, then, you know, especially if the weather's good, who knows?
Yeah. And before we go, I just obviously want to just chat briefly about the B&I Cup. The boys got a great win down in Munster.
Yeah. Amazing.
And I mean, especially for the team that they put out, compared to the Munster 15.
Yeah. It was a very strong Munster team that they put out, but you know, obviously I didn't
both
see
the
the match.
forwards and the backs.
Yeah, no, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys from Heineken Cup experience in that team.
It's international. I didn't see the match, but the reports that came back from a variety of sources, both sides of the divide, as it were that it was a cracker of a game.
Shame there's no highlights anywhere.
Yeah,
I was
it's
looking
a real
at today to see if there was any, but there doesn't seem to be anything put up.
And you know, the other real pity is that we're probably not going to get to see the final because it's on the same time as the Amlin final.
With it.
And as our Sky not showing us,
but you see, Sky have, but because it's clashing with the Amlin. Now, at the moment, that can change. Or even if, you know, the problem with it is, though,
Newcastle schedule,
because you see they are in these crazy playoffs. You see, even though Newcastle have gone through undefeated in the whole league, they still have to play two-legged playoffs, a semi-final and a final, to actually go and win it. You know what I mean? And they're on crazy days. They're on like Monday, Sunday, then the next one is Thursday. So
including the final, don't they have 3 games in 8 days or something ridiculous like that?
It's mental, and it's just purely for Sky. So there's no way. I think ideally they would have maybe played that game on a Sunday if if the teams had been able to do it, because that would have been a nice kind of thing after the Heineken Cup. But because it's all clashing, they're not going to move it from the thing. And even they could make a proposal of, maybe because you play it at 6 o'clock or something, so people could watch it beforehand. But that would kill their gate. So it's, you can understand it, like, but it's just typical that the one time Leinster finally get to a final and they're not going to show it. You know what I mean? So as things stand, it's a shame.
It may have been shown on the red button. We don't know.
Hopefully, even if they show delayed coverage afterwards, maybe it's something that the OLSC can make a bit of a representation on, or something that or even Leinster can make a representation on, even if you showed highlights after the game or something. You know what I mean?
Again, this guy will probably it depends on their schedule, but they can show 2 games at once.
Oh, they can, yeah. But obviously we can't watch both games at once anyway, so it's going to be like
that.
If
you have 2 tellies.
No, we were watching. Obviously, it was. Looking at the things, I think we had some like 6 academy backs and 1 sub academy back, and to go down there and win like that was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, anyway, boys, thanks very much for watching a long show, and thanks very much to the 2 lads. Cheers. Thank you.